Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Deep Six Podcast, coming to you from both Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Orlando, Florida. Of course, as you probably have already guessed, I'm your host, Steven Spivak, joined yet again over the phone by the one, the only Mr. Matt Barnes. Matt, how are you?
Hey, what's up, Steve? How's it going?
You sound excited to be here today.
Yeah, more or less. I'm not unhappy. I wouldn't characterize myself as not excited.
Well, that's good. Anyway, yeah, here we are, back again with the Deep Six Podcast. Missed last week, had some technical issues we were trying to get worked out. My internet provider literally shit the bed worse than anybody's ever shit the bed, and we just couldn't get things on track. So here we are. Hopefully, this show goes well. We don't lose internet or anything during this show, but
why would it?
Because I've got CenturyLink and they're the fucking worst. I kid you not. I have literally had nothing but problems with them since the day I moved into this building 3 years ago. So, but we upgraded our package to 80 megabits a second, and hopefully it stays that way.
It's always good to have the upgraded package.
Yep. That's what she said. Why don't we get started here with the first topic we've got on the list of things to talk about today.
That's how you're going to launch into it? Like, do you have nothing better? Like,
I don't. Do you have anything better?
You know what's really weird, guys? You know what also sucks? Domino, the first images got released from Deadpool 2. Like, you could have really transitioned a little bit better.
See, though, I don't think it sucks.
Well, I don't think she sucks.
Well, why don't you take this one, then? I'll let you take it.
Well, the first images of Domino came out for Deadpool 2, the big cinematic adventure, being played by Zazie Beetz from FX's Atlanta, or is that on FXX, the Ocho?
FXX, the Ocho.
Yeah, I'm not sure what channel that comes on, but I know it's on FX. She's on Atlanta, Donald Glover's show, and she's not bad. My big issue with the first images released, for one, she's fucking beautiful. But let's just get that cat out of the bag immediately, right? Like, she's gorgeous and she looks really good. My big issue with it is that it looks like she just, like, the director called her and they're like, "Hey, Zazie, what are you wearing today?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm wearing, like, leather and my hair is out. Like, I look like I normally do, except, I'm wearing leather." And he was like, "Cool, bruh. Just show up. And just however you look today, we're going to throw some white shit on your face and, fucking action, bro." And that's how it looks to me. It just looks very lazy. And this is kind of, as uninspired as I was imagining that Deadpool 2 was going to be already, because Fox just seems to be much more interested in the sequel than they were in the original, because they thought that the original was going to make no money, and it made a shit ton of money. And now they're more interested. And them being more interested means that we're going to get, look, she's on another Fox program, so they're like, "Oh, let's put her in this movie. We'll feature her." And it's unmistakably her when you look at it in the image. Like, you know this is her. Whereas you might not know it was her if they put her in, the Domino classic makeup from the comics. You might not know it was her because she'd be, very pale and whatnot. But you clearly know this is her. And, they did the other stunt casting with, "Hey, Josh Brolin's going to be Cable." Cool. Well, Josh Brolin was also fucking Jonah Hex, and he was also fucking Thanos, and he's, in this comic movie and that comic movie. Like, get a fucking grip. Fox is just being very, very, they're playing too much in this world now, where the first one was great because they didn't play it at all because they didn't give a shit. And that's really where I'm at with it, that it just looks lazy. And that kind of feels inspired by the fact that I think the whole thing is going to be lazy now.
I don't know. I think it's a little too early to judge this film, but based off what you said, I don't disagree. I definitely feel like the casting, and after seeing, of course, the Domino reveal, that it feels like Fox is putting too many hands into this project that they didn't put into the first film.
I think she could have showed up and they could have not done any makeup on her face at all, and she could have just looked like herself, and she'd have been a kick-ass Domino. And I think even entering into the fray, just putting that little bit of makeup on her face, it just makes it look lazy to me.
Just
don't bother. Unless their storyline they're playing here is that her mutation hasn't really taken hold yet, and it's starting, and that's why it's only one, little spot on her face.
Well, I mean, the Domino character really only has that face spot. But I mean...
that's not necessarily true. She's fully pale white. I think the pale white comes from her mutation, doesn't it?
I honestly don't remember. It's been so long since I read the
I believe that
origin
the
of
pale
Domino.
white comes from her, work the odds mutation, change people's luck. But I think the side effect, was that it turned her pale white. And then the black spot on her face was, what it was too. So I don't buy into the racial storyline of this whole thing, that she sucks just because, they're turning a white character black or what have you. I don't think that's really the story to me. Didn't even enter into my mind. My first thought on it was, wow, that looks really fucking lazy. Like, I hate Fox. I think she's going to be kick-ass as the character either way. I think she's going to be really good. I think the casting is solid on it. I was skeptical at first, but I'm starting to buy into it more because I think she looks the part. Just the overall presentation is just lazy.
I don't know. I'm not going to judge the character just based off of one or two images.
I'm not judging the character. I'm judging the studio based on one or two images.
Yeah, I get that. I'm just saying that I'm hoping that once we finally see the character on screen, it feels a little bit more true to the comic book. But I'm half expecting Fox to go and say, well, we want you to do this, or we want you to do that. We don't want this to feel like that. We want it to feel like something completely different.
I know your early speculation was that you thought this might not be a finished image, and then we saw more set photos where she looks exactly the same as she did in the release photos by them. So it seems like this is their final look for the character. And, says nothing about her acting ability or how the character is going to come off, because I think the character is going to be really good. I just, I don't like the way Fox kind of stunt casted this movie and then just didn't give a shit about how it looks. I think they're just, throwing shit together. So, I don't know. I'm going to wait for more. I think that people will fully be able to judge kind of if this is true or not based on the look of Cable. I really hate the Josh Brolin casting. So,
yeah, we've discussed that before.
On that. Yeah, and I've been very solid on that all the way through, that I really don't like the Josh Brolin casting. So I think that'll help me form my opinion, because if he looks cool, I'll be like, okay, well, maybe they're just doing something different with Domino, and that's fine, because I think that Domino can look different. We have no final image of her necessarily. I know a lot of people do have it in their head, they need the classic look for Domino. Fucking Domino's a fucking D-list character. Shut up. So they can change it. It's not an important character in the scheme of things. I know that hurts for people that like Deadpool, but it's not an important character. So I think there's room for interpretation there, just the same as, there was for Negasonic Teenage Warhead, who was like a 2-panel comic character, and they did something completely different with her movie appearance. So I think there's room to do different things, but if they screw up Cable, fuck this movie.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat there. I really hope that it wasn't just a rare occurrence that the first Deadpool movie was good and was a success for Fox, and this one turns out to be absolute shit, which I feel it could. I don't know though. I'll keep my my criticism kind of relaxed until I see images of Cable, and we finally get a trailer to get kind of what the tone of this sequel's gonna be. But I don't know. The whole Domino thing doesn't rub me as wrong as it rubs all the other internet trolls that I've seen complaining about it. But it is what it is.
I think the backlash is warranted if your criticism of the way the character looks right now is, well, that was a white character. Really? That's all you got? Like, you have no intelligent thought in this matter? If that's, if the backlash is at that, cool. I'm all aboard that, because that's a really dumb reason to not be into the character, because it's just, there's nothing that says this all can't be changed. And I know that it's kind of like Marvel's general policy that, if we want to be more diverse, we just make a second version of the same character. We don't just change the character, we make another version of the character. So, I don't know. There's no reason that a character can't be two different ways. There's, different universes, and in DC there's different multiverses. Like, fucking grow up.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
I'm yelling grow up as we talk about comic book characters.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where we've gotten.
Keeping with the comic book, film, television-esque discussions, we've got our first review, if you really want to call it a review, of Inhumans. It was posted by Spoiler TV. Not sure I've ever heard of them before.
Sure, and I think they posted it early because ABC has requested them to remove it.
Yeah,
so
I saw...
removed the review since then.
Yeah, I saw the original link that I had sent to you talking about it had been taken down too, so I'm lucky to still have something here that quotes the review. But it's not nice at all.
What were some of the highlights from the review?
The word simply awful. Scott Buck's worst work yet.
For people who don't know, Scott Buck was the showrunner on Iron Fist. So if you didn't like Iron Fist, you were unlikely to want to see more of what he had to do already. I think that's important context for anybody who's going to review it and actually say, this is Scott Buck's worst work yet, because that seems very influenced by how they felt about Iron Fist.
Yeah. I mean...
Which I think is unfair. I think Iron Fist is very solid. It's not what we wanted out of Iron Fist, but it's solid. I liken it to, like, if you watched True Detective on HBO, you're like, wow, this is one of the best fucking shows I've ever seen. And then you watch season 2 of True Detective, and you were like, oh, this really sucks. That's not true. It didn't suck. I think that it was one of those situations where the first season was so good that anything else that came after it was going to look bad by comparison if it wasn't up to the same quality. So it was still better than 80 other things that were on TV, but it wasn't as good as season 1. I think Iron Fist kind of suffers from the fact that Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, like in a row, all got better quality-wise, and Deadpool 2, or fucking Deadpool, Daredevil 2 was really good too. It was fun. It wasn't great, but it was really fun, so that kind of made it good. And then after that, you have, Iron Fist, which is all about, people talking in a boardroom, and he doesn't do any iron fisting. So, it looks bad in comparison. I definitely think that's one of the situations we're looking at here. So to directly say, this is Scott Buck's worst work yet, okay, well, give me, what does that mean? You didn't like Iron Fist. That's what it means to me.
Yeah.
Give me some context, like, why do you think this is his worst work yet? Don't just say, this is his worst work yet. Okay, well, that seems kind of, personal to me. You just, you're still fucking sour that he blew Iron Fist.
Well, I'm also interested to know how much this person that reviewed the show actually saw. Are they going off of one episode?
I think the only thing that would have possibly been screened is what's going to become IMAX, the first 2.
Because it's not blatantly stated here. It does say, but the pilot is massively disappointing. So I would assume it's just the pilot. So it's probably not even the first 2 episodes. But
I don't know if they count the pilot. I don't know if they're counting that as the first 2 episodes because they're releasing that as a pilot in theaters for IMAX. I don't know if they're counting that as the first 2 or the first 1. I don't know, but you kind of just throw it out there as, the producer. It's his fault. That's how it reads to me. Go watch, fucking the last 4 seasons of Dexter that are fucking terrible. Go watch that and tell me that this is his worst work yet. Shut up. I have no time for that argument at all. If you can give me a more contextual argument, then I'll listen to it, if there's some basis and fact behind it. But to just, throw the director's, or not the director, the producer's name out there and say it's his fault because he's the showrunner, that just plays to me as kind of just, there's no credibility to that.
I'm going to read off the whole review. It's only a few short sentences here.
Yeah, go for it. I think that's a good idea.
The review goes, there was a lot of hope for this pilot, and it did not live up to the expectations. Not even a strong cast could breathe life into the cringe-worthy script they were given. There are some decent moments, but they are few and far between. For the most part, this is a big mess for Marvel. There is still hope subsequent episodes can save the series, but the pilot is massively disappointing. Simply awful. I'm so disappointed since I generally love everything Marvel does, but this is absolutely terrible. The dialogue is atrocious, the fight sequences are shockingly choreographed, the sets, or more so the obvious green screen, aren't that crash hot either. Its only saving grace is Lockjaw, who is adorable. As one of the few people that actually liked Iron Fist, I can easily say that this is Scott Buck's worst work yet. End quote.
Yeah, I don't see anything of value in that review. I think that throws the producer under the bus. And I think that, again, it's still basing it on what happened with Iron Fist, because you're giving this underhanded compliment of, I'm one of the few people that liked Iron Fist, but this is really bad. So that just kind of reads really weird to me. Also, I think this, taking it contextually, I think that it sounds like a person who's unaware that the show is airing on ABC.
Yeah.
And I don't think, is it airing at the 10 p.m. slot? I don't think it is. I think it's airing earlier than that.
I thought it was a 9 p.m. slot for
Right,
Humans,
so it's airing at a time where they're trying to market the show to families to watch it on TV at night. So did you think the dialogue was going to be on the level of, Daredevil or Jessica Jones or Luke Cage, Marvel's other TV efforts, and even what Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. can do being in the 10 p.m. slot? Do you think it was going to be on that level? I think that it seems like this person's kind of unaware of what happened. Who's the person that wrote the review?
That I couldn't tell you because it doesn't say. It just says that it's from Spoiler TV.
We're going to have to get that for the next episode and find out who wrote the review so we can kind of look at other things that they've reviewed just to kind of see where the reviewer's coming from. But this reads to me like somebody who's a little bit uninformed and is playing the blame game to an extent. I just, as somebody who, I've written reviews for places before. I wrote reviews for my own site that I was going to launch, and I feel like it's never a good idea, even if you don't like something, to just bury it. And then we wonder why ABC asked them to pull it, because you buried it when you got a chance to view it early, and then you buried it. What did you think was going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this review is just... It could have literally just been a fanboy who's seen all the stuff that we've seen publicly, who's seen the trailers and the photos and this and that, and gone and basically said these things. This feels no different to me than some, for lack of a better term, internet troll going on Twitter after, Comic-Con saying, oh, that footage we saw looked like shit. This show has no hope.
Look, I think that any of the footage we've seen already, I think looked better than we could have expected it to. I don't think that it looks super great, but it looked better than I was expecting it to. I wasn't expecting much from this because I didn't love that they chose Scott Buck to be the showrunner for this. But I have reasons why I didn't love him as the showrunner for this. I thought that Dexter progressively got worse as the show went on. I thought that Iron Fist wasn't up to par with the other things that were put out. Even as somebody who, even going down the same road this person did, but even as somebody who thought Iron Fist was okay, I didn't think it was great. But it just seems like Scott Buck, as somebody who's producing and show running, it lacks the ability to innovate, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Among other people that ABC television is choosing to put together these Marvel shows. He just doesn't seem like somebody who knows how to hold something together properly. And I thought that Marvel was building this up to be a big property for them, where this might be the property that they would have maybe eventually transitioned into a movie, because the Inhumans are such a big deal in the Marvel Universe. And at least on the comic side, they were pushing them as a big deal for a long time the last couple of years.
Well, as we've noted already before, this was slated to be a film originally, and then they decided they wanted to go to the television route with it. So, I mean, to me, that says that they had more expectations and hopes for this than they originally thought.
Yeah. But I thought that, the hire of Scott Buck was kind of unambitious on their part. It just seemed like they could have brought out one of their heavy hitters they had putting together other shows and brought them in to do this show. Kind kind of like how DC on their television side has, Greg Berlanti basically doing everything because he understands the context of the characters and he knows how to, keep story structure together. He's holding story structure across, 4 different shows right now, and it works. So, I think that it just lacks context. But again, I don't know. I thought that everything we've seen so far looked better than what they're giving it credit for, too. I think that it exceeded expectations that a lot of people had going into the footage that's been released. I don't see anything from that footage that directly leads me to believe that this is going to be bad. I just thought it was going to be kind of ho-hum, maybe, but I didn't think it was going to necessarily be bad. So now, it's got me all sorts of ways. I think this is just a really bad review.
Yeah, we discussed this in one of our last 2 episodes with the Comic-Con discussion about how what we got out of Comic-Con looked really decent. I don't want to say good. I was going to say good, but it looked decent. It looks solid, and I personally don't feel like this show is going to fall as flat as many people are setting it up to.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm still probably going to wind up going and seeing the first 2 episodes in IMAX.
Yeah, absolutely. So am I.
Because like I said in one of our last episodes, I want to see how it feels on the big screen contrasted to the small screen, especially because those first 2 episodes are shot in IMAX. They're not just, TV put on an IMAX screen. And I just want to see, I want to draw the conclusion whether or not this would have been better in a movie format or TV format. And I'm still not holding my expectations super high, but I'm not already giving this show an F, having not seen anything other than some stills and a few trailers.
I think that's smart. And again, obviously this was written by a person who we presume has seen it. So, they obviously really didn't like it. It wasn't for them. I don't know. I think that people should form their own opinion. I guess that's where I'm going with that. I still think that anything that's been put out so far about this show requires you to form your own opinion on it. Don't listen to just some turd on the internet who just wants to troll things. But again, I think on our part, we have to find out who wrote that review and then come up with some more content on this subject for the next show.
Yeah. Keeping with what we were discussing the last couple episodes with the Comic-Con discussions, we were talking about how Noah Hawley is developing a Doctor Doom film for Fox, and it seems like Mads
Mikkelsen?
Yes. I always butcher names.
Indeed.
That's my job here, is to butcher everybody's name. Mads would like to play Doctor Doom in the upcoming film.
I think this is somebody that we've previously discussed at some point as, who would be the perfect Doctor Doom if they got that from, Marvel. That's something we've discussed before. We thought that Mads Mikkelsen would be great for the part. Now that he's played another, a Marvel film villain, not a Fox film villain, but he's played a Marvel film villain now because he was Caecilius in Doctor Strange.
Yep.
I don't necessarily see it now because I've seen him play somebody else, and I thought he was really good at what he did in Doctor Strange. Marvel villains are super limited, but in terms of what the studio gives them to work with, anybody playing a villain. But I thought that he was quality for the film. I thought that he was good. I'd like to see him come back in that role. I wouldn't want to see him take something over at Fox in a movie that's going to go nowhere anyway, and just ruin his chances of coming back in the Marvel universe. I would rather he not do that, because I think that he's starting to make some headway. Years people didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
And then he got Hannibal, and then now he's got a Star Wars movie, and he's got a Marvel movie. So I'd rather not see an actor that I really like take a role that's something that's going to kill future opportunities. I also think that Noah Hawley and Fox are probably going to go really young for this part, so I don't think that he's going to be in consideration anyway. But I think it's interesting that a guy that we thought could be that part wants to play that part.
Well, this wouldn't be the first time he's been, I don't want to say considered for Doctor Doom, but back in 2015 when they did the Fantastic Four reboot, he was involved in the casting process,
sure,
which he walked out on because he decided it wasn't for him.
Good decision.
But now he's coming back around to it. I think there's a quote here in this article that I've read here. Yeah, it says, it's always interesting. They are experimenting with doing some of the villain stories as well. Let's see if they do that. I'm not familiar.
He's not familiar with a lot of things, clearly. He's using this general they. They're doing this. They're doing that. It's almost like he doesn't really have the awareness that the Fantastic Four doesn't belong to Marvel, who he's already worked with. It's going to be a big shock to him, I would imagine, when he's made a Marvel movie, then he goes back to Fox, and it's going to be a shit show again.
Yeah. It says he's interested in them doing a strictly villain film.
Well, I think everybody's somewhat interested in that.
Yeah, because the quote goes on to say they haven't done it with the Joker and they haven't done it with the Penguin, so we'll see when that day comes.
Well, the closest we've gotten so far is Suicide Squad, technically, I would think.
Yeah.
And we know what happened with that. It's hard to pull off. One of the things I think Suicide Squad didn't pull off really well, in the end, originally I really liked that movie. I thought it was pretty quality. But, the more I've been talked into this and the more I've watched the movie on repeat viewings, the one thing that they really didn't, convey is why a villain would want to save the world. It just made no sense how they kind of came together and were like, oh, I'll save the world just because you're going to kill me if I don't. Like, that's not enough. Why else would they come together? They're fucking villains. They're supposed to not like each other. There was no ambition there for why they would come together. To his point, though, who wouldn't want to see a Tom Hardy Venom movie if Marvel was making it? Everybody would be all over this movie if we knew that Marvel was actually going to have a hand in creative. But we know that Marvel has no hand in creative for that film, so nobody's going to want to see it. Just a prediction.
Yeah.
I just think anybody who has some sort of, anybody who has some sort of trust level that a Doctor Doom movie is going to turn out well, that's a solo production at Fox. Noah Hawley's involved, who I think is really good at what he does with Legion and Fargo. I think they're sorely underestimating how badly Fox botches things on the regular. Because they put out Logan, and Logan's really great. Okay, well, that's a nice fantasy, but, if Deadpool was really great, they didn't want it to be great. They get a lot of credit for the moves that they make that people really like. But in the end, when we really analyze the move, they didn't want to make Deadpool. Ryan Reynolds had to release footage on his own to, kind of blackmail them into making the movie.
Yep.
Logan is a shit movie. Sorry. I'm just going to say it again. Logan's not a very good movie. You're just all like, oh, well, Wolverine kills people, and he says, fuck. Okay, well, that's a real great movie, I guess. I don't know. Days of Future Past is like the last really great movie that Fox has made with Marvel characters. And that's a while ago now. So I'm not really sure where people are getting this idea that another Fox Marvel film is going to be really good. There's nothing to back that. There's nothing to back that up.
No, there's not. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Anything that Fox has made with a Marvel property that's been anywhere near successful is the things that they've done where the studio has kind of left their hands out of it. For example, Deadpool.
Right, and that's kind of what the connection I was trying to make earlier with Deadpool, too, that if the studio was less involved, I'd feel better about this, but I get the impression the studio's not taking a back seat this time because they saw how much money the first movie made. Yep. And the studio's thinking is, well, look how much money that made when we weren't involved. Now we should get involved and it'll make more money. And that's the wrong attitude for them to have because their movies tend to make less money as they go on.
Yeah, I mean, if the studio keeps their hands out of this Doom film, I think it has serious potential, but I think it also goes based on...
What can they possibly do with it if we want to speculate a little bit?
I don't know. To me...
The Doom character to me is somebody who would only save the world if it served his own interests. So he'd have to be getting something out of it.
See, I don't think they even need to go anywhere near the anti-hero thing to do a Doom film.
You can't have a major studio film where the lead character is a villain. It just hasn't played well. Traditional.
See, that's the thing, though. That's kind of where my hesitations come into this.
An out-and-out villain. Like, he needs to be somewhat of an anti-hero for it to work. An out-and-out villain leading a cast of a film, especially if they go with an actor who doesn't have the star quality. Unfortunately, I love Mads Mikkelsen, but he doesn't have the star quality. Carry a movie where the main character is going to be an out-and-out villain. Sorry, it's just true.
No, I mean, I don't disagree with you.
Even with Noah Hawley involved, I would have zero confidence, even if Fox took a back seat, that could work out well. They kind of need to come up with some kind of story that could make that work, and I just don't know if that story exists outside of him being involved in the main Marvel universe. I think Marvel could make that work. I think Marvel could make Venom work. I do not believe that Fox or Sony can make either of those movies work by themselves.
So let me ask you this. If you were to set up this Doom film, if you were the person writing this film, what direction would you go with it?
If I had my grand scope of what I would do, this is assuming that I could have Doom in the Marvel universe, the MCU. If I had Doom in the MCU, I would do this as like somewhat of an origin story, like where Doom wasn't necessarily a villain. He was not necessarily a hero. As a youth, he was a cocky guy, and then Reed Richards fucking him over, kind of turned him to the dark side. And show his tie to his country, which is it's his country. Kind of show that, like, he's fighting for his country. Maybe, the fucking Avengers dropped, 3 dead people on Latveria, kind of like they did on Sokovia. 3 people died.
I don't know. I feel like if I were to
that's
do...
just spitballing. I really don't know. What would you do? Sorry.
I would go, I don't want to say with, like, Nazi overtones, but I feel like setting this up...
You kind of want them to play off like Red Skull.
Like Red Skull, like kind of like almost a Hitler-esque character, but do like a younger thing where he has decent intentions and then he gets overthrown by the power that he has and
right. So kind of like
his ego. Yeah, I mean, I would really like to see that. That's the only way you can do it. Yeah,
that's the only way you can do it. But I don't think it would work with him not having other characters to interact with that are also like superheroes or super villains. Whereas if he existed in the MCU, you could do that, where, you could backdoor that as like a launch of the Fantastic Four, where the Fantastic Four show up in that movie, but they're not a main part of the movie. They just show up, kind of like Spider-Man in Civil War, where you kind of just have them show up and they're like, oh, the fucking Fantastic Four here, I'm gonna defeat them really quick, and then they don't show up again. But it launches them later to work against Doom because you've already seen them show up once.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to do the dull Fantastic Four origin story again, which we've already seen twice, and it sucks. The Fantastic Four origin story is really bad. As much as I like the comic, it's a bad origin story. I don't want to see it again.
I don't think that, the possibility of seeing a Reed Richards or a Sue in this film is out of the realm of possibility.
It very much seemed from the way that they're building it up that it is standalone.
But I mean,
like they were putting Noah Hawley in charge of their whole Fantastic Four sideline.
How do you do that, though? Like, the whole basis of the Doctor Doom character is the fact that Sue leaves him for Reed.
And that's my big question.
Like, I don't...
how do you do that?
I don't know. And
Or later in the Ultimates universe where Sue is she's with Ben Grimm. There's motivations for why these characters end up the way they do that I think that they consistently miss. And I think that they'd all be missed if you do Doom by himself and the Fantastic Four doesn't appear. I didn't get the impression from articles that have been written about this that the Fantastic Four are going to appear. So I don't even know who you have Doom work against. Like, who's the face in that movie?
Yeah, I mean, do we even have a... I'm sure there's not a script written, but is there even a treatment done yet? Like...
Probably not. I would assume that they just wanted to announce that he was working on it and try to build up some goodwill because people know who Noah Hawley is and they know that his other work is quality. I think they were trying to build up some goodwill by releasing that early, but I doubt they have any work done on it yet.
I mean, it could be just as simple as Fox saying, hey, Noah, we want you to do a Doom film, and we're announcing it tomorrow.
Right, and he probably said yes, and they announced it right away because, just having his name attached will give it more credibility than Josh Trank or Tim Story on the original films. It's going to give it more credibility by having somebody who actually has legitimate storytelling ability in them be attached to that movie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about this. Again,
not to beat a dead horse, I don't think you could tell a Doctor Doom solo story outside of the main Marvel universe. I just don't think it would work. There needs to be more interaction at play, and there needs to be context. I don't think there's any context to this because there's nothing else happening. You're just launching into Doom by himself, and it's never been really well explored what his background is in either of the first, the 2 Fantastic Four franchises. So, what are we going to do with that? It's, he's just going to show up, and they're going to put
Yeah.
some actor in it that they think is going to be able to carry a movie, and that's why it's not going to be very good.
I mean, Doom is also a character that doesn't really do a whole lot by himself. He's usually cohorting
Tied
with
to every
other
other character.
Yeah, he's usually cohorting with other villains or being thwarted by a hero. I mean, it's
Or a group of heroes.
exactly. So it's going to be really strange to see him as a solo character.
Doctor Strange? Would it be Doctor Strange to see him?
No, it wouldn't. But I'm just sitting here thinking about like the things they've done with Doom recently in comics, where they basically made him a god through the Secret Wars event, the most recent Secret Wars event, and
Right, in Battle World and whatnot, where he's, the supreme shaper of Battle World.
and where they also recently revealed him to be the biological father of Tony Stark. They've done some very interesting things with the Doom character,
Sort of.
but those are all things that you can't do story-wise in a film because you don't own the rights to all those other characters. So, I mean...
Right, and you won't work with Marvel.
Exactly.
So it's just going to make it not work very well. I don't know. I definitely think that it's a bad move. Not even just the Doctor Who movie, so I'm not even saying this is bad for that. I think the Venom movie is a bad idea, too. It's just generally a bad idea to try to launch these standalone villain films without involving key characters to make them work, or key events within a universe to make them work. I have serious concerns about a Doctor Doom movie without the Fantastic Four and a Venom movie without Spider-Man in it.
Well, I don't... see, this is the other thing, though. These villains, their origin stories come off of stories that the heroes had.
Involve the hero.
I don't know how you get the Venom symbiote to be the Venom symbiote without Spider-Man first, being off in Battle World and getting his quote-unquote black symbiote costume and coming back to Earth with it, and then the costume, taking on a life of its own and attaching to another host and enhancing the characteristics of that host. Or I don't see how you get Doom without having that whole love triangle story between him, Sue, and Reed, and him basically having his entire world shattered and needing to get that revenge. Why does he become Doom? What happens to make him Doom? I don't know. I feel like we're just kind of going in circles with this discussion, though, so I feel like we should move on.
No, I think we're fine. I think that we've covered it as much as we can possibly cover it until there's more news about it. But it's difficult to possibly have any sort of understanding where this could go at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is right now. Like you said, we're just going to have to wait and see what else develops from it, and it could be something that moves very quickly and we get news about sooner rather than later. But I feel like this is going to be something that we probably won't really have a grasp on what's really happening until probably the middle of next year.
Amen.
Anyway, moving on, I guess we're going to get to probably our last story and probably the biggest story that we're going to cover this week. Recently, female Marvel Comics editor Heather Antos was... I guess you could say harassed online for basically taking a photograph of herself with a few of her other female Marvel coworkers enjoying a round of milkshakes, and posted that on Twitter.
Yeah.
And came back the following day to a slew of sexist remarks from, dare I say it again, internet trolls. And the main reason I wanted to discuss this is because you and I, Matt, had discussed in planning another episode about diversity in comics and people who basically just shit all over it and what's right and what's wrong with it. And to me, this kind of fits in with that theme because most of the comments that I've seen against her picture are just extremely outlandish and saying things like, one quote I've got here says, "This does explain the quality of work Marvel has been putting out of late." Quality in quotes because, of course, they're being sarcastic. Can we just get off feminism and social justice and actually print stories? God, DC looks better and better. Things like that. Like people who are literally just saying things because this is a group of females that works for Marvel. They're just shitting all over everything. And to me, this is exactly what's wrong with the comics industry right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that there's just so many people who are extremely sexist and against, for lack of a better term, diversity. I really hate using that term like as a blanket statement like that, but basically there are people who go against characters being anything other than big burly white dudes saving scrawny small women and things like that. I mean, it's just, I don't know, I'm kind of going off on a rant here, but
no, and you're fine. And I have things to say about it too. I think it's important to have the context of, she is an editor for Marvel, so she doesn't even have just a basic job. She's an editor. I believe she was working on Gwenpool too, right?
She was an editor for Gwenpool. She was also an editor for Star Wars, the Poe Dameron book too. Two books that are extremely popular with readers. By the way, these are two of the properties that are actually working for Marvel. Exactly.
She's not an editor on things that aren't working for them. She's an editor on things that are working for them. And not a lot is working for Marvel right now. But she's working on two things that are working for them. So to specifically target this one person in general shows a surprising lack of context. I also think that the picture, from what I understand, they were out celebrating another Marvel editor that was a woman retiring, weren't they?
Who had passed away, Flo Steinberg.
Yeah, so I knew it was something of that nature. They were out celebrating somebody else that was also like a pioneer at Marvel. Because, one of the big criticisms of Marvel is that, there's not enough diversity. And it's true. Marvel's trying to work more diversity into their characters, but when you look behind the scenes of who's writing the books, it's never anybody of the same diversity that is in the book. It's still generic white men writing these books of all these diverse characters. But here we have an editor that's a woman who's doing a really great job, by the way, in a company that's not doing a great job overall in the comic industry. And people are targeting her. It just shows, that some of the agendas that are driving this are just completely out of nowhere. She's being called, people are calling Marvel, social justice warrior shit now. And this has nothing to do with that. What in that picture said, oh, this is, a social justice warrior cause. We're drinking a milkshake. There's nothing to do with that. She didn't even talk about comics in the post. They're just celebrating a colleague that was also a pioneer. And she has to come back to this. This is why, you have Marvel executives coming out and saying, well, diversity is what's hurting our sales.
See, the other thing is, I think...
Which was also a surprisingly dense thing to say, because that's not what's killing your sales.
I mean, this is where I start going off in a tangent again. The social justice warrior comments drive me up a freaking wall, because to me, that's basically always what Marvel has been. That's basically what Marvel was founded upon, was characters standing up against, basically the Marvel started off with Captain America punching Hitler in the goddamn face. That's what Marvel is. The little guy standing up against, all these injustices in the world. I mean, that's what Marvel is, and that's always what set Marvel apart from other superhero books out there. And then the whole talk of writers who are writing diverse characters but who can't truly represent those characters because they aren't that particular, I don't want to say niche, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The books that are written by the people of the same demographic of the character that they're writing are doing extremely well and getting high praise. But you also then go and you have the people who are literally just shit on the book because it's not targeted directly towards them. So it's like you get the guys who are, have been reading Marvel comics for years, and they're, 35, 40-year-old white guys that want to see Captain America, going around throwing a shield at people, or they want to see, that typical shtick, and then they see a book like America, which is America Chavez, who is a I want to use the term genderqueer, but I don't necessarily know if that's appropriate.
I don't know that necessarily fits.
But it's a character who is targeted to an extremely narrow demographic, but the only people that are complaining about it are the people it's not targeted to. Or then you get a book like Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, who it's a young black girl who's extremely smart, but people are bitching because, it's a book targeted towards younger kids who are outcast or looked at as outcast because they're extremely smart, and people make fun of them for it. Or then you get the things like, and this is where I'm kind of like 50-50 with this diversity thing, where you get, Marvel characters who are established characters being recast as either a female or a person of color, which I don't necessarily disagree with when it's done properly, because things like Miles Morales, I love Miles, but then that's also a situation where it's not taking over a canon character.
Well, I mean, I mentioned this earlier when we were talking about Domino. We talked about this, that what Marvel generally does. They won't recast the character. They just create a new character or a new version of the character. So it's like they don't fully commit to diversity, which kind of bothers me a little bit. And they like to claim that they're trying to become more diverse than, say, DC Comics. But they're not really becoming more diverse. They're just inventing new characters to call themselves diverse. They're not really thinning out the pool any. They're just kind of adding more to the pool. And then they're not really backing that up with creators that are diverse. But you're right. The creators that they are hiring that do fill that diversity mold are doing really great jobs. Yeah, I don't know that there's really a whole lot you can add there. There's no excuse for what's happening in a lot of these stories about, creators being attacked just for being diverse. There's just nothing there that you can really defend in any way, shape, or form. It's uncalled for, and it's not even remotely factual. So it's just people the Trump's America bullshit people that just want to fucking complain about something, not being, fully white America, or, that's an immigrant. I don't like it. Shut the fuck up. It's not going anywhere positive because you're just talking shit to talk shit. You have no fact behind it, and you're not even willing to open your mind to the fact.
See, I'm kind of like the thing that drives me, and this might just be me beating a dead horse, but the thing that really drives me up a wall, like I said, is how are you even a fan of Marvel Comics, yet you want to cry, oh, I'm over this social justice warrior bullshit, and diversity can kiss my ass, it's killing comics, and this and that, when, that like I said, it's what Marvel was founded on. I mean...
Some of it, yeah. I mean
all of it.
That's literally the X-Men right there. But I don't know that you're getting, a lot of diversity in, your main Avengers characters. You have, Spider-Man and Iron Man and Captain America and, whiteys all around.
But I mean, Marvel has always been at the forefront of diversity with characters like Luke Cage and Black Panther and things of those nature. So,
somewhat,
I mean,
because I think that in a lot of ways, some of those characters, at least in their early iterations, were, caricatures. What they thought this character would be, what they thought that, a diverse group would think is cool. And
I mean, a lot
of the content behind those characters didn't come until way later after they were, conceived.
Well, I mean, I'm not entirely disagreeing with that.
Years before Black Panther would get really great in-depth stories. It wasn't his conception that he became really great, and he was, this shining beacon of diversity because he was kind of just, that token character for a while, or Luke Cage was the token character for a while. We're getting really great storytelling out of them now. But
they were characters that were not treated as typical black characters when they were introduced, is more what I'm getting at with that. They were more respected than you had seen black characters treated before then. And honestly, you didn't really see many black characters before them. But, I mean, this is getting a little off into a tangent here. But, I mean, to me, this is a topic I could go and discuss for a whole episode. But I just wish people would let other people enjoy what they enjoy and not feel like because it's not for them that they have to shit all over it and put it down and call people out about it. for no reason. And it's honestly one of the things about the comic book industry, whether it's being a fan or being a creator, that just drives me nuts because it's so completely unwarranted. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I can't dispute that. I think that's essentially what it is. I have nothing else to add.
To go out on a lighter note with the whole topic of this whole trolling situation turned into a industry-wide support. I don't want to call it a meme, but I mean I don't know what else to call it. The hashtag Make Mine Milkshake, of course, a spin on the old Make Mine Marvel tagline for Marvel Comics, turned into a whole thing across the industry with different creators and artists within the industry sharing original art pieces or images of characters, enjoying a milkshake, and it shows solidarity for female creators within the industry. Even DC decided to support Marvel by all of their female creators over there taking a giant picture of them all together to show the amount of females that work for DC, sending out a tweet that says, "Cheer Marvel ladies." So, I mean, it's kind of nice to see that, but where it comes from originally kind of sucks.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, is anybody surprised by that, though? Like, DC kind of has their finger on the pulse of what's going on at this point. I know that doesn't make you very happy, but DC kind of has, like, everything going for it right now. So I'm not surprised they'd be brazen enough to come out and just support Marvel, which they should do anyway. But DC, is kicking ass right now, so they should. They should come out and support.
No,
anybody.
I mean,
They're the leader of the comics industry right now.
It doesn't surprise me at all. I'm happy to see solidarity within the comics industry that's usually kind of cutthroat.
There absolutely should be solidarity on this issue because it's so disgusting that it would even become an issue.
Yeah, I just wish that, like I said, people could just get along and let people enjoy what other people enjoy that's not targeted towards them or that's not causing anybody harm. But yeah, I don't know. I guess this is a good point to wrap out this episode. As always, you can find the Deep Six Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at Deep Six Podcast. And, of course, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, pretty much anywhere you find podcasts. We should be available on almost every service out there. Of course, links to all of that can be found over at deep6podcast.com. Matt, real quick, why don't you remind them where they can find you on the internet?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at @TheMattBarnes. I'm on Instagram at @TheMatthewBarnes.
And then, of course, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Steven_Spivak. We're going to try and come back again next week. Can't make any promises. Things have been really tough just getting on the same time schedule to record and things of that nature. But we're going to try to come back next week.
Stop being negative.
Hey, I'm just being real.
Negativity's uncalled for, really.
But yeah, hopefully we'll see you again next week. If not, we'll see you again in 2 weeks. If you feel so inclined, please share the show with your friends, family, anybody you can think of that might enjoy it. And yeah, that'll do it for another episode of the Deep Six Podcast. We'll see you next time.